Hi all, and welcome to today's YCharts webinar, where we'll focus on how financial advisors can communicate with impact and grow AUM, focusing in particular on our new report builder tool, how to use it, how to leverage it, and quite a few examples that we'll walk through together. Just some housekeeping notes. First and foremost, please keep in mind that the content of this webinar is meant for educational purposes only, and is not intended to be used as investment advice, nor is YCharts acting as an advising party regarding client funds in any way. This webinar will also be recorded and will be emailed to everyone tomorrow in case you have to hop off early or would like to review it again in the future. It'll also be available as a replay on our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to, remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our newly released videos, or can view past ones in the that have been released previously as well. So a little bit about me. First and foremost, I work as an enterprise customer success manager here at YCharts. So working with a lot of our current clients to make sure that they're getting the most out of the platform, working with them a lot in terms of building reports. So running through some of those examples today. Please also feel free to start a free trial. You'll see some links to that throughout our slide deck here. One just by going to YCharts.com, but also you'll see that there are going to be some QR codes throughout the different slides that you can always scan, and that will take you to a free trial page as well. You'll see some of the agenda here today. So we're going to cover a wide range of information in regards to the report builder. So a quick overview, and then using it in quite a few different ways for client communications as well as for internal communications to help streamline that process for your teams as well. We will definitely have time for Q&A at the end. So please feel free throughout the webinar as questions come up to put them in the Q&A section within Zoom, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we possibly can given the time. So I'll go ahead and move into YCharts here. So just for navigational purposes, where we're going to be throughout most of our webinar today is going to be within the report builder tool in YCharts. This is a brand new tool. What the report builder allows you to do is fully customize any PDF reports from YCharts. Those PDF reports typically focus on individual securities or portfolios, whether those be standalone or if you wanted to run comparisons or multi-comparisons to compare multiple different securities or portfolios at once. But we'll also talk a bit towards the end on how these reports can also allow you to aggregate information from within YCharts to view charts and tables and things like that all in one place. So we'll start first with a little bit of a look at the report builder itself. So you'll see when you come into here, you're going to be able to edit any existing reports that you have, whether those just be some set YCharts templates that we put out as a team to make things a little bit easier for you in terms of getting started, or any custom reports that you've built in the past. You are also very importantly able to share all reports that you build. So if you work on a team and your team members also have YCharts access, you can share those reports so that you have consistency across the reports that you're generating and don't have to duplicate efforts where everyone has to recreate the same report. You can also create brand new reports from scratch. So you have a couple different options when you're creating those reports. This blank custom report template starts you just with a blank page, and you can start the portfolio report or the fund report from scratch and build it module by module and have it look exactly how you would like it to. You'll see when you come into create a report, you're able to select the report type. We'll focus on these first three reports first. These just differ in terms of the number of securities or portfolios included. So you're always able to generate create a report on a singular security or portfolio, compare two portfolios or securities at once, or multi-comp will be comparing 3 to 6 portfolios or securities at one time. We'll touch on presentation reports a little bit later today. In addition to the number of portfolios or securities that you have included, you're also always able to include a benchmark if you would like in addition to those securities. You don't necessarily have to start a report from scratch though. You can also come into this second option here, which is creating a report from a YCharts template. These are some common reports that we see run Using this route will allow you to not have to build the report from scratch. Instead, a lot of it will be pre-built for you. You still have full customization of that report and can make it look how you would like, but this takes away some of that upfront work for you. So as an example, let's go ahead and start. I'm going to start with our comprehensive side-by-side report. This is one of our most common reports that's used for comparing two portfolios against each other typically. Often we'll see this used when a prospect is coming in to meet with an advisor, or if you're proposing changes to a current client's account. It's very common to see the current portfolio put into YCharts to run a comparison against the proposed portfolio and then include or exclude a benchmark in addition to that. So I'll go ahead and hit start here. You'll see, since we've started from a template on our portfolio page, this is going to give us a pre-built report that we can then modify and add to as needed. So when we come into here, you'll see it's going to be broken out by various different pages for the report. And those pages are going to be composed of different modules. We're able to control these pages. So if we wanted to move them around, it's a simple drag and drop capability. We can also delete pages, add in new pages, and even duplicate pages if we just want to make a slight tweak to another page. We also have full control over the modules themselves. So for the existing modules, you'll see that I can click into them. We can choose whether a benchmark is included or excluded for many of these modules. That's going to follow the default that I've set up for my report to make it really straightforward in terms of what I'm looking at within here. Often though, these different modules pull in a lot of different metrics for us. So we'll see in this key stats module here as an example, it pulls in 6 different stats on these portfolios. That might vary in terms of what you might want to talk about from our defaults to what you typically talk about with prospects or clients or like to focus on your funds or portfolios. So this is fully customizable. Maybe I want to get rid of beta and year-to-date returns, for instance, and instead I can either type in exactly what I'm looking for if I know, or browse our metric library and bring in relevant metrics. So in this instance, I'll go ahead, I'll add in standard deviation, and I'll also add in weighted average PE ratio. Fully customizable and always changeable in the future as well for these templates. You can also bring in new pages and fully customize the modules themselves. So I clicked on that new page and you'll see we now have a new view here on the left that actually lays out what each and every module that is available to be brought into this report is. We break those modules out in a few different ways. So first and foremost, we'll sort them by module type. So you'll see performance modules, portfolio statistics modules, holdings modules, etc. We also call out the amount of page that those modules take up. So you'll see you have quarter page modules, half page modules, full page modules, which allows you to better organize your report as needed. In an instance like this, I'm going to keep most of the bones of this report intact so that we can still see how our two portfolios are stacking up against each other. But I'm going to add in some extra information that might be typically brought up in meetings that I have with clients or prospects. One thing that you'll see as we go down here on the left is that you can preview different modules that are available. And a lot of these are going to be areas that focus on portfolio or fund characteristics. So allocation information, holdings information, performance information. But there's also going to be a lot of different modules here on the left that are specific to things that you can produce within YCharts. So you can bring in charts and tables and things that are often saved within other tools. Something that you'll see right here that I'm going to bring into this report is some scenario information. Scenarios within YCharts are another one of our tools. They allow you to run hypothetical withdrawals and contributions on portfolios. So I'm going to bring a scenario into this report so that I can see maybe my client is nearing retirement and we want to discuss what withdrawals have looked like over the past, how well they're positioned to sustain periodic withdrawals over time, information along those lines. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop some information into here. I'm going to add in some basic info on my scenario so that we have a good baseline for what we're looking at. And then I'm also going to bring in our scenario portfolio summary, which is going to show the impact of those withdrawals on these two portfolios over time. As I come down here, I'll leave most of this intact, like I said, but maybe some of this gets a little bit too granular for what I'd like to talk with for a client. So this expanded region exposure, for instance, I'm just going to go ahead and hit delete this module and take it out. That's not going to be something that I touch upon today. I could add in more modules here. In this instance, though, I'm just going to delete the page entirely and we'll move on from there. One thing that's really nice within these various different areas is you'll see some of these pages aren't fully complete in terms of there is more space for modules to be included if needed. In a section like this, you'll see it's being smart and letting us know that only quarter page modules are going to fit within that area. If I click on that, it's going to self-filter down for me to those quarter page modules. So this is the options that would still fit within there. I'm okay with how it looks right now, so I'm just going to leave it be, but it makes it really easy to know what's available as you're building your report. I'll go ahead and leave this asset allocation information intact. And now we come into drawdown and risk information within the report. I really like this drawdown chart. It helps highlight volatility and how consistent our portfolios or funds that we're looking at are over time. And maybe this risk information table is a little bit too in-depth for the client that I might be meeting with today, or it's a little bit too numerical and I want something a bit more illustrative. I'm going to go ahead and delete this module. And in this instance, similar to the scenarios that we talked about previously, I'm going to bring in a chart that I've previously built. So I'm going to come down to the bottom. You'll see there's the option to bring in a fundamental chart, another tool within YCharts. When I drag over that fundamental chart, what appears here is all of the charts that I've saved in my account. Both my charts as well as any charts that have been shared with me from colleagues will be accessible within this area. I'm going to come into a chart that I made today. So this chart highlights performance during the 2022 inflation drawdown. So it looks specifically back on 2022. You'll see the chart that I saved only includes the S&P 500. We're going to be able to add the securities that we're running this report for to this chart without having to edit it. So I saved down a base chart. I'm adding that into my report, and then I'm going to be able to change that chart however I might need to when I generate the report itself. So you'll see that not only are you able to fully customize these reports, you're also able to templatize them so that when going forward, you might be meeting with a new prospect or a new client. You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to create a brand new report. You're going to be able to use the same report over and over again so that you have a good access point or multiple different reports that you can access when going into those meetings and having it set up and ready to go. I'll keep most of the rest of this report the same. So you can see it's pretty simple to set up. One thing that's not out yet with the report builder, but will be out shortly, and I have a preview of it within my account today, is this report builder preview section here in the upper right-hand corner. So where it says edit securities, if I toggle this on, you'll see right now, anywhere that data is actually going to flow through on this report when it's generated into a PDF, is just a blank space because this is meant to be a template so it can work across multiple different securities. If though I toggle this on, it will ask me what securities I'd like to use to populate the report. So I'll go ahead and load in a couple of different portfolios that I have in my account. So the current portfolio and the proposed portfolio. I'll hit submit and you'll see this preview is now going to populate with the actual YCharts information. So you'll see I now have performance numbers. I'm going to have asset allocation information within that section. You'll see my stats are now reflecting those various different customizations that I made to them. So it makes it really quick and easy to be able to access that information, see how this report is going to actually look when I go to generate it, and then I can come back and make any changes right now before I've even generated the PDF itself. If everything looks good to me though, I can always generate the report itself from the report builder, or I can generate it directly from a portfolio or a fund as you can do today within YCharts. So a couple of different workflows to allow you to access these reports going forward. I'll go ahead and quickly save my report. I'm just going to call this client or prospect report. I'm going to submit. And then it's going to let me generate it once it gets fully saved. So we'll give it a sec. I know it's a little bit slow when or sharing screens. Let's save it again. There we go. So I'm going to hit this generate button, and this is going to be where our scenarios and charts that we've added come into play. So I've already previewed this, so it's actually smart enough to grab the portfolios that I've entered in as my preview. I could edit these if needed, but since that's going to be the 2 portfolios that I use to run this report, I'll leave those as is for now. And then you'll see this fundamental chart security shows up in this instance since I've included a chart in my report. You have a few different options from this dropdown. Right now, this chart would generate as is, so just including the S&P 500, that's the only security that's in the saved chart. I'm going to choose to add all my report securities to the saved chart. So that's going to take my 2 portfolios that I'm comparing and add them onto that chart without me actually having to edit the chart itself. When I hit next here, now we move on to the scenarios portion. So previously, when I brought over that scenarios module, I didn't indicate what scenario I wanted it to run, what those withdrawals or contributions should look like. Instead, I've previously saved down some common ones that I run within my account. In this instance, I'm going to hit this 5% annual withdrawals as my option for my scenario and look at how taking 5% out of each of my 2 portfolios in this reports, what that looks like over time. I'm then able to populate a cover page, which I've included on my report, entering the client's name who I've prepared this information for. And I've actually already generated this just for ease. So we can come into here and take a look at it. When we generate this portfolio, you'll see the cover page will populate with the relevant information. Since we had that preview in our previous report builder, a lot of this is going to look the same. We'll be able to see all of the same performance information that we previously did. But you'll see now the scenario that we built out will be within here. So this scenario, for instance, looks back to the beginning of 2016. That's the start date for this scenario. And this basic info that we brought in is really helpful to remind us of what's in that scenario. We invested $100,000 in each of these portfolios at the beginning of that time frame, and then withdrew 5% annually over the entire time frame all the way through yesterday's close. And we can see down below where their current portfolio would be as a monetary value, what we're proposing, how that portfolio would have fared. So it would have grown to $113,000, even with those 5% withdrawals over time. And then down towards the bottom, this is if the withdrawals were just coming out of cash. So we have withdrawn $44,000. So we'd have $55,000 and change left if we hadn't invested that in money at all. You'll see a lot of the asset allocation is going to be within here, similar to how we had it laid out within the report. I'll go ahead and just come on down to the section where we added in that chart. So you'll see here in this instance, we have our drawdown chart, which was that set module that we had previously. And then we've got our performance during 2022 inflation drawdown chart just below that. As we saw previously, that just had the S&P 500. That was how I saved the chart previously, except when I generated this report, I said to include the report securities. And so in this instance, our 2 portfolios are also being added into here, and we can quickly see how these 2 portfolios fared during the inflation drawdown and help that to support our case as maybe we're making this pitch to the client or prospect. So as you can see, there's a lot of customization available within the YCharts system to allow you to highlight what in particular is most important when trying to win some new business. What we've touched upon so far, though, has largely focused on using saved YCharts materials, which is going to be what will allow you to power the vast majority of your report, where you can grab important analytics and information on your portfolios or on the securities that you're looking at. There is some information, though, that's not available within YCharts that you might want to include in reports. That could be things like firm information, team bios, disclosure information that might your compliance department might want added onto those reports. Even things like custom cover pages, if you wanted it to look a little bit different than just the standard YCharts cover pages. And that's possible to do as well and embed that information into your reports that you build within here. So I'll go ahead in this instance, I'm just going to open up a report that I've saved previously, and I'll just edit it here. What you're going to see here is in the first 20 or so pages of this report, This is not information that was generated within YCharts. This is just actually a PowerPoint that I built and saved down within on my computer. And it allows me to touch on some areas that might be more so important for client conversations and building those relationships, but not analytical or research-based or allocation-based, but nonetheless important to include. If I add in a new page here on the portfolio itself and scroll down, all the way down towards the bottom of the available modules is this option for a full page image. If I drag that module into this report, you'll see what that does is it creates a Dropbox within the report. This Dropbox can ingest images. It can also ingest PDF files. If it is a PDF file, it will let you take in up to 10 pages of a PDF file all at once. So you can do batch drops into here. It just helps you round out your reports and make them really customizable and firm branded and including anything that might be relevant so that you have one go-to place for all of your reporting needs. As you can see, this report here, as I scroll down, moves on from team information and investment philosophy information directly into YCharts information here. So here's a similar report to what we were just seeing. This one here is actually one of our multi-comp reports. So it's instead going to be looking at 3 to 6 different portfolios or securities. So that's why we'll see a slightly different layout within here. But all of that information moves seamlessly from those previous embedded information that was added into it. And when this report is generated for any portfolio that it's generated for or funds that you're looking at, it still appears in the same way as the report that included only YCharts information does. So it really allows you to have a streamlined view, have everything available in one place, and make this a go-to one-stop shop for all of your reporting needs. And so you can see it really nicely flows for investment information. There's even the ability to, if you'd like to, include the same YCharts footer across all of your external content as well to just really make everything seamless throughout the report and make it look like one package process. It's really easy to use. Like I said, all you have to do is drag and drop it in. So if you have any of those materials that would be helpful to embed anywhere in your report that you're often combining reports or whatever that might be, this is a great solution for that as well. One of the things we briefly touched upon just while talking about that is also talking about compliance information. You can drop in external content into reports like we're talking about just to ensure that the compliance text reads as needed. But there's also some solutions within YCharts itself that will allow for disclosure language to be updated or changed. You'll see if I just add in another new page within here, it's always possible to bring in both disclosure information overall, as well as performance disclosure information. We have standard YCharts disclosures and performance disclosures, but that is always something that can be edited and changed as needed. So these disclosures would be your firm-specific disclosures. You also have the ability to bring in custom text. So if it's ever helpful to bring in text on every page, if you needed to call out something in particular for disclosure or compliance reasons, or similarly, in an instance like this, where you're meeting with a client and maybe you have the same template for your report that you use anytime that you meet with someone, but you like to have a custom text module that comes into here where you call out a few specific bullet points, that's a possibility as well. So I could say, meeting with client X, that would be the title for this section. And then I could add in anything that we thought would be important to call out that day. And that would populate within this slide. If I was meeting with a new client, rather than just having this be fully templatized, I could always come back and edit those bullets as needed and then quickly generate the report from here. So as you can see, it's really flexible for comparing portfolios, for comparing different funds that you might be looking at. If you have separate account data, for comparing separate accounts that you might need to look at, and really brings everything together so that you're able to include YCharts information and all of those really powerful analytics and insights that you're able to receive from the system, but also receive information and embed information that might be important to you that isn't accessible within here because it's proprietary to your firm, for instance. In addition to basing information, though, off of specific securities, like we've been talking about right now, where these adapt and change depending on the security type. We do also have a new report available entirely in the report builder. That new report is that one report that we touched on briefly before, which if I open up another custom report template within here, this presentation report. So presentation reports differ in that they are not based on the portfolios or securities that you're generating them from, and instead are almost standalone reports within YCharts that allow you to accumulate previously saved items that you've saved or have been shared with you within your account in YCharts. So I'll call this, maybe we, for instance, wanted to put together a monthly chart deck that we share with clients of our firm or that we use internally to ensure that we're aligned on market and economic information. Anything that you might want to be pushing out, this is going to allow you to bring all of that information into one place and really quickly and easily be able to generate this report on a go forward basis. So I'll click into this report and you'll see right away that on the left, the options for our modules are going to be quite different. So previously we saw a lot of those portfolio statistics, the holdings modules. Those don't necessarily exist anymore within the presentation report because it's not supposed to be based on a particular portfolio or fund. Instead, this is supposed to apply towards anything that we might want to have included. So you'll see largely this is going to be disclosure information, custom text boxes, cover page information, and then saved tool information. So you'll see if I hover over the tools menu up at the top, we'll see the fundamental chart, we'll see the scatter plot, our table tools, comp tables, and time series analysis are going to be down here. That will line up with what we're seeing here on the left. You can also, as you'll see, bring in external information with that same full page image module as we were seeing in previous reports. So if there's anything in addition to what you might accumulate within just these various different modules available, that would be helpful to include. That is still always a possibility. So I'll go ahead and build out a monthly chart deck here briefly. Essentially, I'll start with a cover page so that we can call out what we might be sharing to our clients or prospects or however we are distributing this deck. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag over a chart here. You'll see, just like when we brought in a chart previously into a portfolio report, my save chart library is going to appear for me within here. I'm going to go ahead and just add in a chart within here that I had previously built. You'll see this is going to bring in inflation and CPI information, as well as some interest rate information. We can start with that. The nice thing about these saved assets as you bring them into here is going to be that they will continue to update for you over time if you don't have an end date on your chart. That can function in two different ways. Maybe I'm creating a chart deck that looks back on the month of April. And so I really want everything to end April 30th so that we get a look at the full month and not have it continue to update going forward because maybe I'm running this today or a week ago and it's past April 30th in terms of having that be an end date. That's a possibility. When you're saving those charts, if you put in that end date, that is going to be the end date that is included then when you bring it into a presentation report. If though this is something that I know that I'm going to be running on a monthly or quarterly or yearly basis, whatever that might be, and I do want it to continue to update for me going forward so that I can just come in here, hit generate, and all of my charts are up to date as of the previous close or the most recent release of the data points that I'm including within my chart. That's a possibility as well. Just like how charts and information is saved within YCharts, you have that control when setting up and saving the chart. So you'll see this one, for instance, I have going until 5/3/2023. I can also set it up where it would be going through the previous close, and that's going to be the date reflected. So you're able to fully customize the date range when creating the charts themselves within here. You'll see I can bring in this information as needed. I'll go ahead and bring in a corporate bond yields chart within here, whatever that might be. Again, this is a chart where when I saved it with an end date of 4/30. Again, if I'd like to instead have that just continue to run. And so if I generate it today, it'd be as of the previous close, always a possibility as well. This is another place where those text boxes may come into play because maybe you want to include some market commentary at the beginning of your chart book. Always a possibility. As before, you can enter in a title You can also enter in some information on the text box, whatever you might want to include, and that will flow through into your report and continue to be editable going forward as well. All of this information can be built out and then saved. And then when you go to generate a presentation report, it's all going to be included for you within that report. So here's one I built out earlier, not to bore you all with me dragging charts into different modules as it gets set up. You'll see this is a great view of something that could really easily be shared with clients or prospects or internally as well, to ensure that you're putting out materials and kind of touching on what might be happening in the market on a monthly or quarterly basis. This report touches on some market commentary to start with, and then starts to look at a few different charts within here. A lot of these charts you'll see will be set up in a couple different ways. So for instance, I brought in the major indices within here, looking at them just for the month of April. So looking at how they performed over that time frame. And then also bringing in the trailing 12 months. So looking back over the previous year, all the way through the end of April, what did that look like? Any chart that you can build within YCharts, which includes a wide range of charts and a lot of customization that you can do within our charting tools, will appear on your chart as you saved it, or I should say will appear within your report as you saved it. So a lot of these first charts that we're looking at are pretty straightforward in terms of what they include, but you'll see as we come down, we'll start to see shading on them. We'll see min, max, and average lines brought into these charts. If you wanted to include any notes on your chart or annotate the chart, bringing in things like trend lines or calling out certain points in time, if you did that on the charts themselves, that would all translate through to the report. So you'll see all of this information comes into here. Not only can it be based on our fundamental charts, which will be those line charts that we've been seeing previously. If you save scatter plots like this sector risk reward scatter plot that I had saved in my account and brought in, that will also populate for you within your report. So you're really able to set this up and have it be housed and easily accessible whenever you might need to, so that you're quickly able to access the information and the content that you might want to be pushing out and sharing. Really gives you the flexibility to be able to run these reports at any point that you might like. One thing that we didn't touch upon in terms of these reports themselves, and that's more so specific to saved asset reports like this presentation report, or like when you're bringing fundamental charts or tables into your standard portfolio or fund reports, is the option when building that report to bring in this saved asset disclosure section here on the left. So we touched briefly on disclosures and performance disclosures. Saved asset disclosures differ in that they will change and adjust depending on what you have included previously as a saved asset. So as we come into the bottom of this report, down towards the bottom after we get through some of this interest rate information that's been included, this is that saved asset disclosure. What is being pulled into the saved asset disclosure is only the securities and the metrics that I've used previously in the charts of this report, and it would adapt if I made changes. So it makes it really tailored and curated for the specific report that you might be running. Another common use of presentation reports, just to touch on briefly within here, is using these for internal meetings. That would be a great instance, especially for having your information update all of the time. You can have saved charts and information like this as we do within here. You could put in some bullet points on maybe what's most important to touch upon that day in your weekly strategy meeting or team meeting, whatever that might be. But you can also bring in tables into here, which we haven't touched on too much yet. So you can have comp tables and time series tables. Comp tables will always show you the most recent data points. Time series tables are going to bring in historical data for you. This can include portfolio information if you have all of your models within the system and quickly wanted to see performance and expense ratio and dividend yield or whatever that might be that's important for you to track on your portfolios on a weekly basis. All of that is possible within here, and you can build that out and also include those tables. So using that example, I'll bring in a comp table. It looks the same as when you're creating a chart, so it grabs your previously saved information. And I'll select this one that I've built out before, which is model portfolio summary. So that's going to grab the table that I've previously created. Just like those charts, tables instead pull in metrics, but they will continue to update for you. So depending on the metric and how frequently it's released, if I have daily return metrics in here, for instance, those are going to continue to update for me on a daily basis. Anytime I'm running this report, I will be viewing the most up-to-date information. I could also bring in a time series table, accessing that historical information. Again, this is going to work in the same way. In this instance, I'm going to grab this one, this major index 2023 monthly returns. So looking at what's trending and what's happening on a month-by-month basis so far this year across the various different asset classes and indices. Again, this is one that I've built out within my account already. So you'll see, again, it has a cover page. I went ahead and left that market commentary the same within here. So very similar to what we were previously looking at. Except now you'll see this is going to take a little bit more of a nuanced approach to our information. So getting a little bit more into the details, since this would be more so for internal meetings and specific metrics that the team might want to pay attention to, rather than what might be shared necessarily with a client. This is just a month-to-date chart that I brought into here. So as you can see, it's going to be bringing in past information for us, or actually I take that back. It's looking back over the past 5 days, because I'm assuming that this is a weekly meeting in this instance. So we'd always be grabbing the past 5 days of market information within here, and we can quickly see performance. You'll see this is as of the previous close on May 17th here, gives us a quick glimpse at that information. Just after that is where that major index 2023 returns comes into play. So we're getting those monthly returns from our time series table that we brought in with the different indices that I had built out within there. From here, it then goes into some of that more firm specific information. So I've got some model portfolios coming into here. I fully customize these columns that are being included. This is something that would be unique to you and ensure that you're focusing on what's most important for you and your team. You'll see it's got month-to-date, year-to-date return information, expense ratio, yield, and drawdown in this case. So we have a quick touch point and are all looking at the same information. I did something very similar then with all of the holdings that we hold across our portfolios. So I've included not only the holdings and some performance information. In this instance, I've also included alpha versus their category benchmark. So again, some extra information available for you within here. This is fully controlled by what you build within the tools themselves. So comp tables or fundamental chart, a lot of flexibility in terms of what's included, what's built, and however you build it out within those tools is going to be how it will come over into YCharts here. This is a great tool to use for internal communications like we're talking about, because this is a template that you could set up in your account once or come back and tweak it every once in a while. But then whenever you need it, you would just come in, generate it, and you have fully up-to-date information for your meetings to ensure that everyone is on the same page. So not only is it really helpful to aggregate a lot of this YCharts information in one place, use the report builder for client communications and winning new business, but it's also just a really nice place to come in and streamline your processes so that you're not having to generate multiple different reports, or I should say multiple different charts and tables and synthesize all of that information together. Instead, you could set this up as you would like one time within here, come back and generate that report whenever you need it, and you would have that up-to-date information available. So just from these 4 different report examples that we have set up within here, comparing portfolios, comparing, bringing in market information, economic information, ensuring that you're tailoring your different conversations with clients and prospects depending on what their needs are and what are most important to them. You can see how powerful and flexible the report builder is in terms of setting up that information and really setting up these reports and these various different templates in ways that are most helpful for you. So I hope that was a good quick overview. I know that we have a few different questions within here, so I'll just move to tackle a couple of these within here. So Jay asked if the report preset is based on the company or based on the user. It really depends, Jay, honestly, on how you set up the report itself. So every user is able to create and edit reports as needed within their own account. When they are on a team who maybe multiple people have YCharts access, these reports are shareable. So if you had built a report and it'd be helpful for your team to have that same report or same multiple different reports to have access to, that's going to be completely possible. You would just need to first share that report with them. Always possible at the report level itself. If I click on this little 3-dot drop down and hit share, you'll see I'm able to change who I might want to share that report with. You're also able to control the permissions of that report. So whether another user can just view that report and run it whenever they might need to, or if you want to give them edit capabilities, that's something that you can grant them as well. So all of that is possible within here. One thing to note while we're on that same kind of team-based viewing of information, as you could see, as I was running my reports throughout the various different examples, they include my own branding and such that is specific to me and my fake company in this instance, but would be specific to you and your company. That's also something that you can control. So if I come into the manage account section here within my YCharts account, on the left side here, there is report branding. You'll see this is where my logo is housed. It's also where I can control the colors that populate within my report or within my charts if I choose to use my custom colors. Similarly, we talked about those disclosures that you can edit previously. That's where all of this is located. If you are on a team with multiple different users, any changes that you make within this section here will apply to the entire team. So that's something that's important to note. Most of the reports you're able to control when it's shared or not. Any changes that you make within your manage account section will apply across the team. It does give you a quick warning note of that before you save it. So a little bit of customization there as needed. Chris asked if you adjust fundamental charts with dates, et cetera, after putting it in the presentation report, will the report update? Yes, it will, Chris. So essentially, since I'm grabbing those specific charts into my presentation report, if I'm bringing in the chart, let's see if I scroll up a little bit here. If I'm bringing in this corporate bond yields chart in particular, and maybe I wanted to remove a yield, or maybe I wanted to add in an average line to this effective yield, if you save that within the fundamental chart tool itself, that will flow up to other reports that you run in the future that do include that report. So always able to make those changes as needed at the chart level, I should say, and that's going to flow up into your report just to make things as seamless as possible. Caesar asked if you can schedule presentation reports to auto-generate. Fortunately, not right now. You do still have to go in and generate them yourself, but there is a lot of flexibility depending on if you wanted to change your chart timeframes or whatever that might be as you're generating that report. All of that is possible. Timothy asks if you have a portfolio that's composed of 60% equities and 40% fixed income, for instance, how do you add multiple benchmarks? So for example, if you wanted a 60% S&P 500 with a 40% weighting for a bond index, it's a great question, Timothy. There's a couple different ways to do that. So I'll kind of tackle your question in two different parts. One is if you just wanted to actually include multiple different indices on a report itself, that would be a great instance of using our multi-comp reports, for instance. So as we touched upon briefly, these will let you include 3 to 6 different securities. So if you have a large number of securities that you'd like to include, that's a possibility within here. If instead you're looking for just a singular benchmark that includes 60% of the S&P and say 40% of the ag, and so more so of a blended benchmark, that's possible as well. You can create those within YCharts. To kind of quickly walk you through the process, essentially you're able to create a portfolio that houses those blends of indices and then assign that portfolio as the benchmark for any other portfolios that you create. So can definitely get into more detail on that at a different time, or happy to answer questions, but have full control over the benchmark that's included for the portfolios that you create themselves, as well as if you need to include multiple different portfolios or benchmarks, that's always a possibility as well. Someone else asked, how did I find those current events like the inflation in 2022 to show how the portfolio or security performed during that time? It's a great question. That's actually something that we've added to the platform recently, just to make things a little bit more accessible. So to walk you through how I accessed that information earlier and how I built it out, I'll go ahead and just pull up a portfolio within here. This is going to apply for any security within YCharts though. So a fund, a portfolio, a stock that you're looking at. We now have this stress test tab available for all of the securities on their security pages. So if I come into here, you'll see that this is going to include multiple different economic timeframes that this security has been around for and populate information for them over that time frame. You'll see this very first one up at the top is that 2022 inflation drawdown, the same chart that I had included within my presentation report. Like all charts within YCharts, we make it really easy to access these just by clicking on the chart itself. That will then pre-build the chart that we're looking at within our more robust fundamental charting tool. In an instance like this, all that I did earlier was take out the securities that were in there previously. I added in the S&P 500. I then saved this chart so that it would be in my default, save chart library that I could then bring into reports and add report securities onto it as needed. So that's the workflow within there, but you are always able to access that stress test tab. It's also going to be something that we'll be bringing into the report builder in general, so that you'll be able to bring in this entire view if you wanted to quickly see how the portfolio or multiple different portfolios or funds had fared over time. Chris asked if you can adjust the legends on the charts. Always a possibility. Able to adjust that within the fundamental chart tool itself. You're able to kind of change how those display. You're also able to change the information that can be included within the legend itself, such as if you wanted to include annualized data points and everything like that. So a lot of presets and settings that you can control at the chart level, and whatever those are that you build out on the chart itself are going to flow through into your presentation reports and any charts that you include in our overview comparison or multi-comp reports as well. I believe for now that was just the last question. So coming just back into the slide within here, as you can see, we can tell how powerful this new tool is. I hope that it will be really helpful for all who joined today to be able to dig into here, build out custom reports and templates that will be really useful to your team and kind of your clients and prospects, as well as they're able to see those insights that you're able to generate with YCharts. So as always, thank you so much for joining today. If you have any questions or would like to start a free trial, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll be sending out this recording as well. Thank you all.